the temperature 1 more degree.
Okay, thank you.
There's plastic cups underneath, there's paper cups underneath the arc.
Oh, okay. Are you all set?
Hope so.
Should I have gotten you water?
It's okay. Someone does it, but it's done. That's good.
Yeah, you got it yourself.
It's all right. It's the fastest way to make
This is
sure.
my note. I have to save this.
All right.
So do you start or I start?
Well, you do, but I'm supposed to change something, and I want to do it before I forget.
Oh, okay. Chuck, do we have a mic?
Yes, you do.
Ah, thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you to everybody who came out tonight, and a special thanks to everybody who's been so supportive these difficult days with our decision about both having services tonight and, more importantly, to not have in-person services for the high holidays. This was a very difficult decision, but in the end, the health of our congregants is of most importance, and we cannot control the number of congregants who might be attending for the high holidays. And I, for one, was not going to stand at the door counting people or with a thermometer to check on everyone's temperature. Hopefully, we will return in person for October and November, but you will hear whether it will be or not. Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Is this one on? Can you hear this one? Okay, we'll use this one. Anyway, to build on, make sure I turned it on. That would make it easier upstairs. Yeah. Okay. There we go. All right, good. So to add on to what Carol said so appropriately, I know that a lot of us are very sad about that unlike our expectations of life returning to normal, we have to sit and wait a little bit longer. And I want to tell you, just from the Cincinnati and watching the spike of the Delta variant there and reading the news, the Temple Board's wisdom in making that leadership helps us to live up to the wisdom from our Talmud in Sanhedrin, which says, when you save a life, it is as if you have saved the entire world. And so while we're all very disappointed about this change of online instead of in person, and I know that Tony and I are very disappointed. She was already packed to be down here for Rosh Hashanah. we do look forward to welcoming the new year together with you. And I want to thank all of the Temple Osei Shalom friends who've been working so hard to prepare for the in-person High Holidays with Ray and Barry, the Ritual Committee, Terry and Ken and the choir, Rhoda and her organizational team, and of course President Carol and the board. I wanted to tell you something that maybe you hadn't read perhaps, and that is the 2020 American Dialect Society, which is an organization I'd never even heard of until I read about it this past week, selects each year the key words of the year to describe what's been going on. So obviously there were a bunch of words related to the pandemic and so on, but they did choose the third choice of ethnic words of the year 2020 was a word that all of you will use as you walk out of here tonight, and that is the word oisgezumt. Oisgezumt. How many of you ever heard that word before? I just said it. Okay, 3 or 4 of you who know more Yiddish than I do, no doubts. Well, oisgezumt means being fatigued or tired of Zoom. And while we are all a little oisgezumt at this point, whether it's a bissel oisgezumt or is it ganze oisgezumt, a big oisgezumt, I don't know which one that is for all of us, but we will overcome that as well. It's sad for me not to be with you for the High Holy Days. I still have the preparations and the sermons and the Torah and the liturgy, but the thing that's the most meaningful and the most special is to be here with all of you. So we'll have to do it on screen for one more year. I hope it won't be a continuing tradition in the years to come. But it's no surprise that we are joining scores of synagogues all around the country faced with another online High Holy Days. We are both being safe and yet sorry. So let's begin our service in person, which is pretty wonderful right now, as we will share in our liturgy for our worship tonight. And let me make sure I go and have that first page, which wouldn't be good if I don't. I may have to borrow yours, Carol. Can I take your first page? Thank you. All right, great. We don't want to miss any of the names and all of you who have been working so hard. So we obviously begin very appropriately. Oh, good. I have the opening page. Thank you. Very good. All right, so we're going to invite all of you and ask that the cafes open our ark doors for us as we begin our service. So Jeff and Floss, thank you for that. Now it's going to be an interesting challenge for us in the next part, and that is to sing. That's it. You don't have to stand. You'll be up the whole service, and I don't think you want to do that. But we always begin with a little bit of singing of Bim Bam, and some of you, I don't think any of you will find this a new word you've never heard before, but Bim Bam doesn't mean anything. Those aren't real words. It's just joyous celebration. But then there's that next 2 lines that actually do mean something, which is Shabbat Shalom. And we wish for all of us a Shabbat Shalom. And I'm going to get back up on the bima because I just remembered the cameraman up there just gave me that look. You did this to me last time. Don't do this to me this time. So I'll be careful. But well, that means you have to sing from a little bit more distance. And the Bim Bam is pretty simple. We're going to get some music to this too. And the choir, how much, by the way, you'll notice our choir has increased 50% since last month. We had Diana Ross and the Supremes last month, and now we have a sextet, including Terry as our conductor, so things have grown, which is very special, right? And we're so delighted that a certain person who was missing last time is here tonight. So I hope you were doing something fun because we laid a flower and a candle on the piano in memory of you not being here. Okay, so we're going to try some Shabbat Shalom Bim Bams, and we're going to leave the choir to start. Good? Here we go. good, but that wasn't as good as it's going to be, because we're glad that Mike is back, because just adding the tambourine was a big plus there. So we're grateful for that. But some of you have neglected the hey parts and the clapping parts, which gives a little of percussion to our singing. So we'll try it one more time. Maestro? Very good, everybody. We'll continue now as we invite you to turn, please, to page 120, as our president, Carol Liff, will light the Shabbat candles for us, page 120 in our prayer books. It's the air conditioning. Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. As we continue now sharing the singing of the candle blessing. Continue now on page 124 as we read responsively at the middle of the page by stanza. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. As we continue now, page 127, there are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, the day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. As we continue now with the singing of Lecha Dodi, page 138, as we welcome into our hearts and into our worship services the Sabbath bride. Come to meet the bride, beloved, come to greet Shabbat.
Shamo v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shamo echad, L'shem u'teferet v'litila la 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 la. Lekrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki hi makor habaracha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'makshava techi la 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 la. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzahala, Toch emunei am segula, Boi chala boi chala. Lecha lecha Dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabala. Lecha lecha Dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabala. Lecha lecha Dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabala. Lecha lecha Dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabala.
For those of you comfortable in doing so, we'll continue as we're standing on page 144 through the Shema. So those of you able and comfortable in doing so, remain standing, and all the rest of you, please be seated and be comfortable as well. Ken, page 144 with our Reader's Kaddish.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
B'yalamod divrei chirutei b'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael b'agala b'agala uv'zman koriv v'yamaru
Amen.
Yehi Shmei Rabbo Mavorach Li'olam Olam Me'omaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitparach V'yitraman V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yithaleh V'yithalal Shemei Chodashah V'chu Le'elam in kol bechata v'shirata Tosh bechata v'nechemata Damiran b'yalma v'yamaro.
As we continue now, page 146, with the singing of the Baruch, reading first the blessing. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach, praise Adonai to whom praise is due. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed, praised be Adonai to whom our praise is due, now and forever.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach.
Seven. O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence as we share together in the watchwords of our faith, found on page 152, as we declare, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please be seated, everyone. As we continue now declaring God's love for us and our love for God, as the choir leads us in the singing of the English translation of the Ve'ahavta, found on page 154. Continue now at the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before we ever stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. There is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we continue now with the Micha Mocha, found on page 158. Page 158. As we continue page 161, let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. Give us a place to rest, O God, and bring us shelter, the shelter of peace over all whom we love, over Jerusalem, our Jerusalem, and yours. As we continue now, inviting you to turn to page 162. For those comfortable in doing so, please rise for the Vishamru, the top of page 162.
ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. וביום השביעי, וביום השביעי, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש.
Continue as we remain standing for the Tefillah, for the Amidah, page 164, as we begin with the singing of Adonai Tzvatai Tiftach.
Agibo le'elam Adonai, mechei hakol rav l'hoshia. Machal keilcha mechesed, mechei hakol barachamim rabim. Zomech noflim v'rofei cholim amatir asurim. U'makayim emunato lishanei afar. Michamocha b'gavurot u'midaho meloch. Melech mimit u'machei u'matzmiach Yeshua. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
Invite you now, please, to be seated as we continue now with the reading of our prayer on page 173, as we read together in these words of comfort and love and peace. Together, may these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Blessed are you, O God, who sanctifies the Sabbath. As we continue now with the singing of Shalom Rav, which you'll find on page 178 in our prayer books.
Thank you.
Please join me as we read our prayer for peace in the English translation at the top of page 179. Together, grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul. May the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo v'shalom, this Yisrael v'shalom. As we continue now in these moments of silence, each time we get together, 4 weeks have gone by since we've been together most recently. And whether it's in person or online, there have been so many difficult moments in these past 4 weeks as we think of the difficulties around our country, of the problems and challenges in Afghanistan, the tragedies in Haiti, and so many other problems wherever in the world we look. And so we continue now in silent prayer, not reading the pages of our liturgy from some long-lost time, but words that are deep within our own hearts, deep that are precious and meaningful to us. We continue now in these next few moments of silent prayer for our loved ones, our family and friends, our nation, the countries of our world, and the entire world in which we live, as we continue now in silence. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer, as we share in the singing of Oseh Shalom, page 180. Congregation serves many purposes. It is a place we study and learn. It is a place we gather to pray. But most of all, I think it is a gathering of community. As we think of all of those who on this Shabbat need special prayers of healing, be it of mind or body or spirit, And each time we do this, our own prayers gather together to make each of their lives stronger and their return to health more complete and more timely. On this Shabbat, we carry in our hearts these who request special blessings on this night of Mishaberach: Harriet Kaufman, Robert Cofino, Barbara Wiswer, Deborah Dahl, Fran Silberman, Eric Smith, Jesse Ferguson, Matthew Palager, Marcy Kozel, Paul Rosenberg, Jack Miller, Eric Schwartz, Jay Holliday, Rhoda Rubin, Tracy Isaacs, Carol Smith, Linda Schwartz, Beth Israel, Jay Israel, Olivia Scheinkopf, Michelle Schlafrock, Bob Wiener, Allison Dutka, Gabriel Ross, Arthur Siegel, Judy Smith, Scott Horowitz, Jonathan Daniel Cochran, Sam Emmett, Susan Rubin, David Moy, Susan Levine, Mitch Hubelbank, Mimi Hubelbank Block, Heather Adler, Mark Robin, Alan Karp, Stanley Hurwitz, the Schoonover family, Joey Goldstein, Marlo Bedini, Aidan Mellon, Joan Ecker, Linda Schwartz, Herb Marshall, Elaine Berland, Denise McQuaid, Judy Schatz, Dolores Mangy, Arlene Rosen, Marty Weintraub, Jay Grossman, Selma Summers, Arthur Solomon, Al Richter, and Hetty Richter. In all of their names, and all of those who are ill from COVID, all the medical professionals who serve them and care for them, all of those who are our first responders in critical moments, we ask God's blessings upon them as we share in the singing of Mishaberach, page 371, as we sing together. We continue now on page 362 with Seder Kriyat Torah, the service for the reading of Torah. As I said, on page 362, we'll be joined by Elaine Lust and Greg Lula and Joel and Francine Bitterman, who will carry our Torah scrolls in just a moment for us, for our service that is so much a favorite of all of yours. I guess we have to be a little bit more careful during this period of time when the Torah has come by. So maybe there will be a little less hugging, but just as much spirit and meaning as the Torah approaches us. Turning to page 362, we continue with the singing of Ein Kamocha.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai v'ein k'masecha מלכותך מלכות כל העולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. Av harachamim heitiva virtzoncha et Zion tivne chomot Yerushalayim tivne chomot Yerushalayim כי בכל לבד בטחנו, מלך אלרם וניסה אדון עולמים. Gadlu l'Adonai iti, u'neroma ma shema yachdav.
Very good. Everyone, please be seated. Thank you very much. we're going to, let's see, we have Dan and Sue Geller, who will be helping us at the end of our Torah service with Hagba and Glila. But before we read our portion tonight, one of the challenges of only getting together every month is you miss a whole lot in between. Now, for those of you who were here last time, I reminded everybody that we hadn't been with each other for a year and a half in person, so that would mean I'd have to tell you everything that happened in the Torah in the entire year and then repeat about a third of it over again. I'm not going to do that. I didn't do that last week. But I will tell you that for our portion of this week, which is a very challenging portion for our thinking of our world today, and it's Ki Say, by the way, is the name of the Parsha in the book of Deuteronomy, just about the end, because as we all know, in just a few weeks from now, we have special readings for the High Holy Days, and then at Simchat Torah, we have that precious moment of completing the reading of Torah and starting it all over again. But here's why this week is a particularly challenging portion for the world in which we live now. It illustrates for us the difference of style of life from the time of the writing of Torah to today. In our Torah portion tonight, we read about having multiple wives, and that it was acceptable in the time of the Bible to have multiple wives. A second tradition with which we begin with this Ki Say is the idea of, in a war, the children and the women of the defeated enemy become our, how do we say this, perhaps concubines in the case of the women, and servants in the case of the children, and this was acceptable in that time. And then we're going to read one more portion. I'm actually just going to share it with you, and that is, if you have two wives, and you like one more than the other, and the one you like less has the first child, the first son, then even though you may not love the mother as much as the other mother, you still have to treat that firstborn child with the same ruling of inheritance as if it had been the child of the beloved wife. Now, why is any of that familiar to us? Well, who do we know of our matriarchs and patriarchs who had multiple wives? All of them, pretty much. Certainly we know about Abraham and we know about Jacob, who not only have their wives whom they married, but the servants of their wives who become part of the matriarchal line, as you're familiar with. So we have all of these traditions which occur hundreds of years after the books of Genesis and Exodus, as we find them in the book of Deuteronomy, where many of the laws are repeated. So if you want to read some texts that I think you'll find somewhat disconcerting, read the 21st and 22nd chapters of Deuteronomy, and you will see how long we have come since the ancient traditions of our people thousands of years ago. So we'll read a little bit of the Hebrew tonight for our Torah reading and for our blessings. It's my privilege to call up Charles and Judy Burwitz, who will do our first Aliyah.
יעמדו יחזקאל זאב בן שמואל וזפורה בת אברהם ודינה.
I don't have a talit.
Here, you can read
Take
this.
that one. We don't want you to miss.
And we were really,
Right there. Ready? Baruch
Baruch
Hu
Adonai
Adonai HaBarach. Baruch Adonai HaBarach Li'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ato...
Baruch
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher bocha bonu mikol ha'amim, v'nosan bonu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
So for all of us who will be a tad troubled by this reading, just remember when it was written and for whom and at what time. Ki tetzeh lemilchama al oivecha. When you go into war against your enemy, v'natnu Adonai Elohecha biyadcha, and God gives him to you into your hands. So in other words, our understanding was that you didn't defeat them, but that God allows you to defeat them by giving the enemy into your hands. V'shvita shabor v'ra'ita bishoveha, eshet yafet ta'or v'chashket va. And when you look upon the spoils of war, basically, and you look at a particularly beautiful woman, an eshet yafat, ta'or v'hashkot ba, you may take her into your home, basically. V'lakachat tziforneha v'hasira et simlat shaveha. Now this is a very interesting portion in one respect, because even though this woman is a spoil of war, she becomes a servant to you. If you find her attractive and you want to take her basically as your concubine or perhaps as your wife into your home, you must allow her to mourn the loss of her own people and traditions. And as it says very clearly, the simlat shaveha, the simla is her clothing. So she should rend the garments of her people in mourning, as we would do. Remember the putting of ashes all over you, or tearing your garments, as we do in the death of a loved one. And you shall allow her to dwell in your home, yeshoveha b'veitcha, in your house, and that she is allowed to mourn aviha ve'et ima yerech yamim. She is allowed to mourn the loss of her mother and father for an entire lunar month, yerech yamim. V'acharei, and after this, kain tavo aleha, you may take her and you may make her into your isha, your wife. V'haya im lo tzivachta ba shalachta v'nafshacha mekor lo timchorna b'kesef v'lo tit'amod ba tachat asher eineha. Now this is an interesting comment as well, as so much of this portion is, and it says very simply that if you no longer find her attractive and you no longer care for her, and I don't mean care for her, but care about her. In other words, it's not quite so gracious and generous as you don't care for her or care about her, then you cannot sell her into slavery. And that, as it says here, you cannot sell her the kesef. What's kesef mean? Silver, exactly. You cannot sell her in kesef. So even though, and why not? Because she had been to you someone who had been precious and beautiful. So here's an interesting portion of the role of women, even servant women, even women of your enemy. They still have rights once you have taken them into your home and loved them, and as I said, made them your wife. If you no longer find her beautiful, by the way, the rules of divorce for the women of your enemy did not count the same as a divorce in the role of a Jewish woman, which was an early biblical tradition as well. But still, they had to be treated with a level of respect that you might not have felt had these laws and these traditions not been part of this text in the book of Deuteronomy. And as I said to you last time, what role does the book of Deuteronomy play? Well, first of all, of course, as I described for you, it is Moses' greatest hits. Everything that Moses taught and that we understand in the first 4 books of the Bible are repeated in a somewhat abbreviated version in the book of Deuteronomy, as it is Moses' final series of speeches to the people, before he knows they will go into the promised land, but what will happen to him? He doesn't get to go. So it's sort of like his valedictory address to the people in reminding them how they should live and how they should follow these traditions. So we'll go on to the second portion in just a moment, and you've got the
Melech Olam, Asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'sachenu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. Amen.
So if you'll face me, I'm going to take a step back a little bit, just so everybody's safe and comfortable. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu. May the one who has blessed our fathers and our mothers bless you on this Shabbat, the Shabbat of our last time of the old religious year and beginning the new religious year, although from a distance. May God grant both of you blessing and good health and long life, with our gratitude for all you mean to this congregation and this community, and all whose lives are enriched because of your friendship and your love, your family and friends. And in their name and in the name of God, we say together, Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
I'll shake hands anyway.
Thank you, Rabbi.
And for our second aliyah, we will call up Stuart and Karen Blickstein, who will come up and share with us as well.
Kela Rachel ben David.
All right, right there. Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Ba'ed. Not a batter. No, there we go. Thank you up there. And by the way, we do have a special thank you to our friends who have been so wonderful in their technical help in the sound and in the video for our services, and we thank them both from the congregation. One of the paragraphs I didn't read, I want to begin just as a show of hands. How many of you have 2 children? Raise your hand. Or more, I guess, but at least 2. Okay, good. Put your hands down. The portion I'm not going to read, and you'll see why in a minute, is the fact that it says in our Torah portion, just after the part I'm going to read, that if you have 2 sons, and they used sons, could be daughters as well, but they refer to sons. So if you have 2 boys, this directly, how many of you have 2 boys? Get those hands up, including me. All right, good. If one of them is wayward, meaning a bit of a troublemaker, I didn't ask how many of you have a troublemaking son. I'm just checking to see that. But the reality was that the Torah portion says you may take that wayward son and bring him into the front of the community, of the leaders of the community, and tell them all the bad stuff he has done, and then they will stone him to death. And I'm not using this as a humorous statement. It was a way for them, as it says the very last line of that portion, it says in there that this is how you will sweep out evil from your community, and that all Israel will be afraid of not following the traditions and the laws, the mitzvot, the commandments. But this paragraph is part of a series of readings that are all in Ki Tetzei that deal with how we relate to other people, be it enemies, or our family, or our community, or our business responsibilities, in terms of how you deal with your customers, even those who don't treat you honestly. So it's a very interesting portion that I think in many ways was Moses' understanding and the people's understanding when they went into the promised land that they were about to enter. They didn't know how to govern themselves. they didn't know how to live their laws and live their lives. So this was the way to take these traditions and continue them. Not that I'm recommending that to any of us now. So we'll read this one little section that I had mentioned to you before. Ki tihiyun leish shtei nashim, he'echad ahuva v'ha'echat sinua, and it's a little bit powerful here. If a man takes two women to be his wives, one he loves and the other one he hates, which is a fairly strong statement here. V'yaldulo, and they bear him banim, sons, ahuva v'snua, so the beloved wife and the hated wife or the disliked wife. V'haya haben habakar lisnua, and if the firstborn son is the son of the disliked wife, v'haya b'yom hanchilo et banav, et asher yihielo lo yuchal lechaber et ben ha'ahuva, you are not allowed to give the firstborn inheritance to the son of the one whom you love, because it's the second-born child. Lo pene ben hasnua, and not to the son of the disliked wife, habakar. Ki et habakar, for he is the son, the firstborn son of the disliked wife, and you will give to him the two portions of inheritance, asher yimtza lo ki hu reshit anu lo mishpat habakar. He is in fact the firstborn of your family, even if it is from the wife that you like less, or in this case it refers to as hates her. Now, why does that matter? What is that story? Well, we've talked about that before over the years. What is an inheritance of a family? If, for example, a man has 3 sons and a wife, how do they divide up the inheritance? They divide it into 5 portions. The oldest born son, 2 portions, the double portion of what's called primogeniture. And then the other children get 1 share, as does the wife gets 1 share. And here is a statement that says you must honor that law of primogeniture, even if the firstborn child comes from a mother whom you no longer love. And so it's a very powerful set of laws, which I really do urge you to look at those, the chapters. It's Deuteronomy 21, 22, it goes into 23, and you'll really learn an enormous amount about the experience of our people in that day. Okay, ready?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher notan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
So if you'll turn around, and I think here's a good thing, take his talit around your shoulder,
Okay.
which makes it a nice, when I can't bless you, you're doing it to yourselves.
Okay.
I should have thought of that for you, but I didn't. Sorry about that. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu. May the one who blessed our fathers and mothers of generations past, and who understood and taught in those days as in our own how we live our lives in relation to those around us, may you be blessed, both of you, on this Shabbat, with the thanks of this congregation for all that you do in the worlds of leadership, for all that you do in the worlds of study and scholarship. We're grateful you've come home safely from a marvelous trip, and we wish to both of you a blessed new year as we say together, Amen and thank you. Shabbat Shalom. So we'll invite our 4 recognized honorees to return to their places as we ask Dan and Sue. Yeah, you're done. Dan and Sue to come up here and help us with Hagba and Glila. And Dan, I hope you're strong, because it's a lot of it is on one side and not so much on the other. Please rise, if you would. And Sue, if you'll go over there when he'll bring the Torah to you. And I'm going to get out of your way. Got it? That's fine. That's as far as it goes. All right, very good. Thank you very much. As we shall share in the, turning to our prayer book, page 370. All right. Yes. Page 370 374 with Hallelujah, as we will share, and then we'll ask Dan to take the Torah back down to the ark. Ready?
Yahalalu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkab shemo levado.
It is a tree of life for those who hold fast to it, and all its supporters are happy. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Return us to you, Adonai, and we will return. Renew our days as of old. As we continue now with the singing of Eitz Chaim, he sharing these words of gratitude and blessing, thanking God. Thank you very much. Please be seated. You know, one of the things I've learned over the years is that pretty much all of you know everything that everybody else is doing in the congregation. Example, I had a lovely moment with Ray Mintz and said how sorry I was to hear that they had to postpone their big trip. He said, "How do you know that?" And I said, "Well, I just heard that at dinner tonight, and the bottom line is pretty much everybody here knows what everybody else is doing." So you may wonder, when there's someone you've never seen before, who these people are. So I want to take a point of personal privilege in this way, because one of my very, very old friends of well over 40 years is here with us tonight. He's part of the Bluffton community. Until yesterday, I didn't know it. I was up in northern Wisconsin at a summer camp that this gentleman and I both attended for many, many years. He was part of the family that owned the camp. And I was talking to another friend and said I was going to services and had to leave this reunion early to come to be here in time. And they said, "Well, do you know that this person lives in Bluffton. I said, no, I didn't know that. So with the powers of instant communication, my friend emailed this person in Bluffton who checked with Rhoda to see if it was okay to come and showed up. And I want to introduce to you someone whom I hope you'll get to know over the years. This is Andy Rolfe, sitting right there. And you'll know him because he is the owner, along with his wonderful wife, of the new Low Country Market and Cafe. And so I imagine, since I've listened to several of you at dinner talking about it, you've already been there, but it's very special to have a dear friend in this community. And while he divides his time between Bluffton and other places, we hope when he's here that he'll know this is a place that welcomes him, and the rabbi is especially glad to see him. Now, there are several of you for whom it's your first service, or at least possibly. Anybody here first-timers? We have new members, at least I know, because I had dinner with two of them. And so why don't we invite some of our newest people who've joined the community to introduce themselves. So I know who we're going to point at. Who's talking? Real loud. Yeah, try it with your mask off. That's a challenge. Great. Well, they're lovely. We had dinner with them at the Blicksteins, which was great fun, and we welcome them. They're Clevelanders, and we compared all the good restaurants we used to go to years ago, most of which are gone, but some of them are still around. Anyway, anybody else, new folks? You have all of you pretty familiar looking at you, so I don't see too many more new folks. We had a bunch last time. So I don't know how many of you were watching the Olympics. Anybody watch the Olympics? So a bunch of you. Tony and I were. And athlete after athlete proudly stood in front of the thousands, millions of people who watched the different competitions and games and crossed themselves or grasping the crosses or religious symbols around their neck. And before each race or exercise or uneven bars or each round, they would look to the sky and silently mouth a few words and bow their heads, offer a brief prayer, and then run or swim or jump or climb or row or tumble their way to a gold medal. And what they were saying, each interviewer would ask them. And most of the times they demurred. They didn't want to say, knowing, well, this was a private and personal moment of inspiration. And then finally, after being asked by the 100th reporter from NBC or wherever they were covered around the world, one of them said, I'm a Catholic, my religion means very much to me, so I always whisper a prayer before every race. Now, I would imagine that made every single priest and bishop around the world very happy. Not to mention all those Sunday school teachers and parents who had hoped to instill in their children the faith in God and in their own religions. And I sort of wonder how the Jewish athletes who did so magnificently in this Olympics might have reacted. Now, you know, we Jews are not as good on ice and snow in the Winter Olympics as we seem to be in the Summer Olympics. Maybe you noticed in these Tokyo Games that it was a watershed of Jewish athletic accomplishment. Sue Bird, a name whom I didn't really know until the Olympics, was voted by her American teammates to carry the flag of the U.S. in the opening ceremonies. Days afterward, she would win her 5th gold medal in basketball, or Alex Kleinman, the gold medalist in beach volleyball, or the Australian Jessica Fox, who won gold in canoe slalom, as her family, her parents had done before. Or Lilia Akhmova of Team Russia, really interesting, a prominently public Jewish athlete on the Russian team, winning a gold medal in team gymnastics. The men, they triumphed as well. Team Israel winning in judo, and the hardest name I pronounced tonight, Artem Dolgopyat, who won gold in gymnastic floor exercises. And who would have thought that Team Israel would be one of the 6 teams in the entire world to compete in that very Israeli game, baseball. They didn't do all that well. I think they came in third or fourth, but they still got to play in this game from around the world. And all of you Brooklynites, let's see your hands, all you Brooklynites. Most of the team came from Brooklyn. And we're like, poof, you're an Israeli. But they still got to play. But I want you to think back with me many decades ago when we had our other moments in the Olympic spotlight. Some of them tragic, like Berlin in 1936 or Munich in 1968. But there were wonderful moments when, for example, there was this gifted, talented, poised, and bright, and handsome, fit, and humble yet honored, and most of all, Jewish Olympic champion swimmer. Not Mark Spitz, who you might come first, they did over there, but the story, the athlete, who told the heartbreaking story of his parents' forced exile from the land of their birth because the former Soviet Union's anti-Semitism forced them out. And in many ways, that moment was equal in improbability to our new vice president's husband, Doug Emhoff, or perhaps Joe Lieberman's vice presidential nomination, or even Yitzhak Rabin shaking hands with Arafat on the lawn of the White House. And who was this athlete? His name, Lenny Krazelberg. Remember that name? Anybody? Lenny Krazelberg, who was tall and blonde and so Gentile-looking, looking directly into the camera of the world's sports reporters and talking about the pain of religious discrimination, of anti-Semitism, of the disparaging names he had been called as a Jew in the former Soviet Union, of the opportunities for study and advancement that had been withheld him because of his Judaism, and the mistreatment suffered by his parents because of their faith. And that same Lenny Krazelberg had done, in my opinion, as much to alter the country and the world's view of Jews as had Lieberman or Einstein or Sue Bird or Jessica Fox or Judah Maccabee. Their places of worship were profoundly public, out on the middle of a huge gymnastic mat or alongside the lane of a swimming pool in the midst of a field of sand or rushing water, surrounded by thousands of screaming fans at home or perhaps in person, judges and fellow competitors, this time in person. And in spite of the tumult, they turned inside and made of their surroundings, these highly televised public settings, into a moment of prayer and sanctuary, without walls, without pews, without clergy, without a huge T on the wall, without choirs, even without congregants. At some time in our own lives, each of us has sought a sanctuary, a place where our feelings could flow, where we could come closer to God. Maybe we didn't have a huge stadium or an auditorium, but we all have a special spot for our prayers, a special somewhere which brings us strength in times of joy. And as I prepared this sermon for tonight for Shabbat Ki Tetzei, the text from Deuteronomy where God describes the rules of family and relationships and friendships, along with the rules of justice and battle and how we treat each other and the people of Israel and those around us, I thought of worshiping with my own family and neighbors in the temple where I was raised. It was a huge and cavernous place. The organist sat in the choir loft high above the pulpit with the choir around him. His back was toward the congregation, and you could only see his head and the mirror that he used to see the rabbi for cues. He didn't have Terry there to take care of things. I remember sitting in those old and huge wooden pews with my family sitting around me, my mind wandering to count the light bulbs in the chandeliers, checking out which of my friends were there, my thoughts wandering to the furthest limits of time and space, only inhibited perhaps in my youthful mind that I was being watched by God and the organist with a mirror. The ark of this old and magnificent sanctuary had recently been mechanized, and one Friday evening after services, a church group was visiting from the University of Chicago on the south side where we lived, and the students had asked to see the Torah in the ark, and the rabbi was happy to oblige. He pointed to the ark with one hand, and he pressed a button with the other, and the doors flew open, and 30 of them almost converted on the spot. Well, for too many Jews in our world, as we have read, the synagogue is not as meaningful as it might once have been. Perhaps you have read, I hope you have, the Pew Report of the year 2020, just a year and a half ago. The Pew Report said that far too many Jews don't even affiliate anymore. What once was close to 80% is now below 50%. And of those do, many don't attend services or educational programs. They just don't feel a part of that community. But for us who do, it is a refuge for all who can go for security and comfort. It is a source of learning and guidance. And I'm referring to the sanctuary all of us will be sitting in for Rosh Hashanah and for Yom Kippur. It is called the small sanctuary of the Jewish home, and it is a precious space, the essence of which is the family. The Shabbat, as we have learned over the years, gives us the opportunity to strengthen the Jewish family, and the success of that strength depends on our own grasp of wisdom, of learning, of sensitivity, and most importantly, the example we have gained and we have set in our own families. As we read a few moments ago, the Torah portion guides us in every action of our day, from what we eat to how we deal with our enemies, our children, our spouses, from loaning money, even to how we win or lose in a battle. And what did Moses teach us? That every day of our lives is guided by deeds and laws, the way you treat your enemy, the proper way of marriage, and if necessary, for divorce. In our families, parents try always to do their best. The best houses in the best neighborhoods, the best schools with the best teachers, the piano lessons for young and sometimes disinterested fingers, and the braces for young teeth. But often these virtues are overlooked in other values that perhaps we do not follow. In the building of our family sanctuaries that we will be asked to do, in Hebrew known as mikdat da'at, these family sacred spaces, we are often preoccupied with material comforts or beautiful dwelling places. But for us, on the coming of the High Holy Days at home, with our loved ones, with friends, watching on the screen, it will be the most valuable gift we can give to provide meaning for our own personal sanctuary. In past years, the Olympic athletes all spoke of the incredible feeling of energy and support they felt when being cheered and applauded by the thousands and tens of thousands, filling the hall or the slopes or the pool or the auditorium. It was as if they were being lifted up and carried to victory. And all did better because of this flow of love and enthusiasm, energy and support. They could swim faster, run faster, jump higher. And they did their best. And the community made them even better. But you and I both know that it was different this year. The crowds had to stay home. The stadium was empty. The grand ceremonies took place before a few thousand instead of hundreds of thousands. And yet the athletes were still lifted up by spirit and joy and applause and cheers. The cheers from watch parties thousands of miles away. The family of athletes became the support system and cheering section. And so, in these coming weeks, may it be for us. May we be lifted by God's Spirit, buoyed by the energy and support of our congregation and family, our community, and our faith. We will not be given gold or silver or bronze medals at the end of Yom Kippur. Maybe we'll be given a break fast with a bagel and a schmear. We are judged not on one race or one heat, but by each day and every action. May all of us be up to the challenge. May we win our personal competitions, and may we say together, Amen. As we arrive at this precious moment of our service, let us take a moment for those of you who have reasons especially to celebrate this night. And I'm going to take another personal privilege. Of course, I mentioned Andy being with us, but just about 5 minutes before 7, Tony and I found out about our newest grandchild, who will be a boy. And we heard that the kids got a report from the doctor, so having our fourth grandchild and knowing it's going to be what we assume, judging by what the doctor said, will be a very healthy and zaftig little boy a few months from now. So we're very excited about that. So I certainly share the simcha that Tony and I share with you. So for the rest of you, birthdays, anniversaries, happy reasons to celebrate that we can share with the congregation, we'll start at this side and see if there are any people who want to begin with that. Anybody have something to celebrate that they're especially happy about other than being here together? Yeah. Yeah, you're going to take the mask off. Say it again. Your daughter got engaged. Mazel tov. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Very good. I know. I'll get Barry? Mazel tov. 58th anniversary. Terrific. Congratulations. Anybody in the middle, whatever this is, this section? Mazel tov, Ray. 88 years old. Congratulations. Doesn't look a bit over 50. Amazing. Yeah. Congratulations. We did the same thing at my house till I was older than my mother. Then we had to change things. So mazel tov to you on that big, beautiful birthday. You have a volunteer who just volunteered you. You? Congratulations. Very good. Anybody else in the birthday or celebrations in here? Of course. Well, that is a special simcha for all of us. Good. My son, right after Labor Day, is fulfilling my childhood dream. Although he was an urban kid, growing up in New Jersey and living in Chicago for many years, he will officially become a cowboy on his new mini ranch in Utah. So he doubles the Jewish population of Utah and triples the population of Jewish cowboys. And we're now discussing whether he's going to have circumcised his new horses. That's more than we needed to know, but it's okay. All right. How about in the choir? Anybody up there? Yes, Mike. 48th? 40th. Congratulations. Mazel tov. Anybody else? Well, we have so many reasons to be grateful that we're all here tonight together, and I hope so many are healthy and ready for this new year. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'achiyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who gives us life, who sustains us, and allows us to share in these many joyous moments together. So we're going to invite now for that Janet Orange come up with me, with us for the prayer for our congregation, followed by Ray and Jan. And they can be aware that they're coming up next. If you want to follow along, page 376 is the prayer for our congregation, for our country, and of course for the state of Israel. Page 376. Ready?
Ready. Source of all being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us: love of Torah, devotion in prayer, and support of the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy.
And let us say together,
Baruch
Baruch
atah Adonai, she'eltecha levadecha
B'yirah na'avod. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Invite the Mintzes to share now with us the blessing for our country and our prayer for the state of Israel, page 376 and 377.
Shalom, Shalom, Yerushalayim, Yishalem, Ohavik. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert us to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
Thank you both very much. As we invite you to return, please, to page 586 as Jeff and Floss open the Ark curtain for us, and we rise for the Aleinu, page 586. As we ask Jeff and Floss to close the curtain and the doors, and invite all of you, please, to be seated. As we come to the end of our service, so we do with this moment of thanksgiving and blessing, as we remember all of those whose yahrzeit, the anniversaries of whose deaths occur at this time for the month of August. We remember Albert Winters, Irving Seaman, Barbara Nilsson, Rose Rachel Siegel, Mary Reich, Manny Goodman, Salman Zeev, Leonard Frushtick, Harry Harris, Lillian Hacker, Annette Bellin, Meyer Kantrowitz, Ruth Zurum Fenster, Elsie Geller, Irving Spinner, Harold Marks, Ida Siegel, Rosella Drucker, Larry Coet, Irving Perlstein, Dora Hecht, Abraham Goldblatt, Florence Abshin, Doris Plaplin, Ann Goldblatt, Seema Miller, Sam Poznansky, Muriel Cohn, Marion S. Elishewitz, Moisey Balshem, Cassia Hoffman, Sarah Siegfried, Muriel Oni, Annette Reff, Martin Wiener, Braden Larson, Herbert New, Martin Green, Gussie Bernstein, Dorothy Shatner, Renee Gross, Ivan Worms, Cheryl Larson, Lillian Rosendorf, Faye Zipkin, Sarah Asnan, George Harrison, Howard Jacobson, Arthur Goldberg, Ben Polstein, Harry Abramowitz, Samuel Bernstein, Jack Cohen, Mildred Schneider, Milton Lang, Romeo Gagne, Russell Fields, Marion Ripetti, Sally Vieder, Robert Grossberg, Joseph C. Mogul, Saul Beiser, Burton Harrison, Herman Baldinger, Joseph Schindelman, Bernard Hellman, Francis Cole, Matthew Burland, Herb Solinger, Meyer Asnan, David Harrison, Melvin Friedman, Rachel Lipsitz Quint, Otto Wagner, Carol Cohn, Dolores Kaufman, Chaya Eisner, Phyllis Lang, Joseph Yates Levine, Abraham Friedberg, Richard Linder, Maury White, Florence Garson, Ken Holzapfel, Morris Krupp, Harry Abramowitz, Henry Sandler, Bernard Moed, Irvin Gillis, Stephen M. Morris, Newton Weisinger, Isaac Ackerman, Gertrude Edelstein, Clara Litt, Muriel Cohen, Hild Marshall, Abraham Kleinberg, Brian Kearns, Rose L. Miller, Ida Asnan, Dorothy Pollinger, Morris Rufus Chalson, Edward Bitterman, Ann Bloom, Betty Ferguson, Morris Weiss, and David Solon. And with special love and affection, we call the name of Jane Rosenbaum, for whom it is a period of Shloshim. In all of their names, and in the names of all of our loved ones, we share on page 598 with our Kaddish prayer, which we read together in praise of God's name, as we ask you please to rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mivorach la'olam olmei maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudsha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all of us who mourn and comfort to all who are in pain. In their names of our loved ones, and forever we say, amen. Please be seated one last time, as it's my pleasure and privilege to invite Carol Liff to share some announcements with us for our congregation, and then Arnold Hillman and Carol Hillman will come up and share with us for the Kiddush and Motzi, preceded by reports, if there are announcements, from Sisterhood and Brotherhood. So Carol, it's all yours.
so you can understand me. um, Thank you to all of you again for coming this evening. I have a special thank you for Jackie Katz, Jan Orange, and Janet Weissman, who filled in at our front table to let in all our guests this evening, and were our welcomers. I want to give a special shout out, thank you to Rhoda Rubin and Patty Sachs. They have been working very, very hard on our new membership directory and the Book of Remembrance, and Patty will be distributing those to everybody like she did last year, since we won't be here for the high holidays. I want to thank everybody who participated in tonight's service, especially Rabbi Cantor for his wonderful words of wisdom and interest, the Torah portion. Ken Rosenberg, Terry Weintraub, our choir people who thank you for coming, Jerry Anderson, Bob and Chuck up there, thank you for streaming. Bill Altman has been working behind the scenes on all of our IT stuff and is working very hard for the high holidays to be setting that up for streaming. We have a wonderful guy, Michael, who's setting up. He put everything out for us. And the Brotherhood, who's helping with supervision, so thank you. I want to thank Barry Zweiben and Ray Mintz, who've been working very hard with the Honors Ritual Committee to get everything straightened out for the high holidays. Remember, we are a volunteer organization. To do our best, it's just not enough to pay the dues. When you're asked to participate, please say yes. And for all of you who do participate, thank you so much for making it so wonderful. And from Sisterhood, I don't know that we have anybody here tonight. I am very sorry, and the Sisterhood did not bring a challah, so we're out of luck with that too. David, you're doing the Brotherhood. Please come up.
Good Shabbos. I am David Glazer, Brotherhood Vice President. Traditionally, a member of Brotherhood Board gives a recap of this past year's events. Yeah, we had some events. As with most groups, the past year has been very difficult. Our membership dropped from 80 to 54, and we understand this. I dropped out of some groups too. Brotherhood needs the support and input of the men of Osei Shalom, whether you're active or passive. If you have ideas, connections for speakers or new programs, reach out to me. I'm in the Osei Shalom book, I'm in the Sun City book. If you want to support Brotherhood, your $14 dues that would help with the programming and Tikkun Olam, a part of our mission statement. With the limited funds we had to work with, we were able to donate $300 to the local food banks. We would have liked to have done more. To expand our contributions to other local groups that you may not be aware that need assistance. Normally I'd say Haneni, please volunteer. Renew your membership, rejoin, or join us for the first time. Thank you, and good Shabbos.
I want to mention that we are going to be meeting virtually for the high holidays. And a number of people have asked how this affects our Break the Fast. And I want you to know that Barry Zweiben has been working on that. And we are hoping to have packaged Break the Fast dinners for people who would like that. So contact Barry Zweiben to find out. Unfortunately, most of the places that he's contacted require a minimum of 30 dinners. So if you're on the fence and think, well, maybe I'd like to order my bagel and schmear from the temple, it would be helpful. We're going to share tashlik, on Rosh Hashanah with Agudath Achim. The service will take place at the Aljoy Public Dock located at 265 Aljoy. And let me know if you want to attend, and also let Barry know, so that we can make sure that we're all in sync for the time. I don't know the time right now, but AA is handling it, and we're kind of piggybacking on them this year since we will not be having live services and we will not be going over to Saul's. So please let Barry know if you would like to come. We'd love to have you. Yes. Yes, I said Akuda Akim. It's the Conservative Temple in Savannah, and they are having in-person services, and they're going to go down to this Aljoy public dock. And Jackie, I know you said you've been there before. Jackie, you said you've been to this dock before? Yeah. And it's easy to find. Okay, so please join us. If you've never done this, it might be a good opportunity to get out of the house, so to come to this. All right, hope to see you there, and tomorrow morning at 10:30, we'll be here in the sanctuary. The rabbi has a wonderful study plan for us, all about the holidays, getting ready for the holidays, so if you can, come tomorrow morning. It's 10:30, it'll be over by noon. And it's right here, yes, right in this room tomorrow morning. So we hope some of you, many of you, all of you can come to that.
Very good. What the Adult Education Committee requested for us is that we be able to make the High Holy Day experience even more meaningful than perhaps it is in person, I should say. So I put together a group of 5 or 6 prayers that I think will be really interesting for us to talk about. We read them, we say them, but I don't know how much we think about them. So tomorrow we're going to look at these prayers together and try to interpret and understand what they say as well as perhaps what they don't say. So I hope you'll join us at 10:30 here in the sanctuary. So we're going to conclude. Some of you are thinking, was this service ever going to end? Well, it is now with Carol and Arnold coming up for Kiddush. And the motzi will be symbolic because we didn't want to take any more chances of giving out food tonight. So we'll look forward to returning to that after the High Holy Days, I hope. So the Kiddush is found on page 123, and the motzi is on page 606, and after which we'll conclude with Tfilat HaDerech, the prayer for travel, sung by our cantor and choir, and we hope all of you as well. Arnold, got it? Good.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagofen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Thank you.
The low-calorie mitzvah of doing the motzi tonight, so thank you to both of you. And as we conclude our service with the singing, please rise for us. And on your way out, say hello to my friend Andy and any of our other newcomers who are new to you. And we look forward to seeing you soon, whenever it's healthy for all of us to be together. So we'll conclude with Tfilat HaDerech, a prayer for us to return home safely and healthfully to our homes and families and loved ones.